Thank you. Good afternoon. We'd like to thank everyone for coming. You will hear brief remarks from Chief Harteau and then Inspector Mike Friesleben of the 4th Precinct. We'll open up for questions after that. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The Minneapolis Police Department recognizes the rights of citizens to gather and peacefully protest. And we have the responsibility to maintain public safety and ensure that the precinct is accessible and safe to those that need it. The decision was made to remove people who were blocking the entrance and covering the security camera within the vestibule. We also had received multiple complaints from residents who were unable to gain entry to speak with our officers and investigators because people were blocking the entrance. We continue to be sensitive of the protection and rights of all of our citizens. I thank those in the vestibule for the cooperation in peacefully leaving the space. I've been told by various sources that some of those who were demonstrating have plans to escalate their behavior. We will not tolerate property damage or any acts of violence against anyone. Public safety must continue to be our #1 priority. Now I will ask Inspector Friesleben to come forward. He can discuss the specifics on what we had planned today, what transpired, and the details as we know them thus far.
Good afternoon, Inspector Friesleben, 4th Precinct Commander. Since Sunday night, we've had lots of different people staying in the hallway to the entrance of this precinct. Sometimes up to 9 people, and they're sleeping, continuously sitting in there for 24 hours a day. It's been difficult to get people in and out. We've had citizens that have called us to tell us that the entryway, they couldn't get entry to the precinct. So today at 1:30 p.m., we were going to go into that area, and we had 4 young ladies in there. We were going to ask them, we had a written statement, and we were going to ask them politely to leave. Our intention was to ask them, give them some time, give them another, read the order again to leave, explain to them that it's a safety issue, we need to get citizens in a precinct. And as some time went by, if they failed to leave, we informed them that they were under arrest for trespass. As we entered that area, we had a line of officers, no riot gear on, no helmets, no sticks. We had brought them out there to put a line, just to put some separation from the crowd for the officers that were going to go to the front door. As we were trying to approach the front door, persons from the crowd started throwing rocks and bottles and other items at the officers with disregard as to who they were hitting, police officers or citizens. At that time, when we opened the door, all 4 of the young ladies actually got up and ran out. We never even had time to have that conversation that we wanted to have with them, a peaceful conversation. Because actually during that conversation, we understand their right for their cause, and we were going to offer them the parking lot across the street to have their protest. After the young ladies were out, the crowd became quite more violent, and at that time we had to call in a CART team, and the CART team is tactical officers. They did have tactical helmets on and vests. Some of them had guns that would look like machine guns to the public. They were not that. They are beanbag rounds. They could be gas delivery rounds, or they could be foam rounds to help if the crowd's aggressive, or to get citizens out of the crowd if they're circled. We did run across one person at the front door. He was the suspect in the incident the other night when the state trooper was punched on the freeway. We were able to secure him. And one other person was secured as we were approaching, threw a bottle and hit an officer. That person ran from the police, and as he's running, he actually slipped on the wet street and fell, and then an officer fell on top of him. We were able to get him in custody. We later tagged him. Instead of arresting him, we tagged him to be nice, and we released him right there at the precinct. Do you want me to talk about the current status?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Right after that, we helped the young ladies. They had 5 large grocery bags of all the items they had in the front hallway there and outside the door. Officers actually took the time to bag those items. We photographed them to show that they weren't ruined, that they're there. We bagged them for them. Officers actually carried those bags out to the young ladies' cars and helped them get them loaded in there. They're quite large and it would have been difficult to carry them. In the meantime, the crowd, we put some barriers up for the precinct because we really want people to walk into our precinct. The community needs to walk in the police station. We need to talk to officers, investigators. The crowd became a little more violent and large rocks, large bricks were thrown. We were able to contain that, once again, without having to wear helmets and riot gear, stuff like that. And right now, the status of the precinct is, there is a large group, but the activities, has de-escalated for the time being.
Thank you, Inspector.
We can open up the questions now if anybody has any.
Who made the order to disperse the folks inside the precinct? Was it Inspector Friesleven or was it you, Chief?
Can you,
Who made the order?
to remove the people from the vestibule? Yeah. I did as the police chief.
Okay.
Yes.
What's the long-term plan for the rest of maybe tonight to try and, for lack of a better term, keep the peace? Okay.
I think we're going to continue to try to have conversations. We're continuing to allow people to facilitate their freedom of speech and to be able to be outside and protest. We just have to keep that vestibule clear. Two very hard words to say it together.
Chief, today the police union, Mr. Kroll, mentioned that there were no handcuffs after doing the interviews. There were no handcuffs on Mr. Clark, and that he also mentioned that he was reaching for the officer's gun. Care to comment on that?
I should not be commenting on the investigation. It's a current active investigation. I have no comment about it.
The
Going back to the
handcuffs.
incident on 94 on Monday night, State Patrol is now telling us that Minneapolis did not respond to a call for mutual aid.
That is the first I've heard of that. We actually were in communication with them, and we were on standby. We were not needed or requested to assist on the freeway, but that's the first I've heard of that.
Was the suspect suspected of hitting the trooper, was he arrested? You said he was secured. Does that mean arrested?
He was identified and released.
Yes.
Correct?
Okay.
He was identified and released.
So is that one arrest then, as well as one person identified and then released?
Correct. One cited and released, and one identified.
Inspector, you mentioned opening up that parking lot for the Black Lives Matter protesters prior to what happened this afternoon. Is that still the plan or not so much?
We respect their rights.
Yep.
And we offered that Sunday right away. We offered that lot. And it's always been open, and we'll offer it again. We didn't get a chance tonight to explain that, but I'll find the right people tonight, and I've already made contact, a preliminary phone call. We are more than willing to let them have that fence lot. It's a large lot. They're free to have their camp there.
One of the purposes of that, there again, is about public safety. So there's a lot of people trying to gain access up and down Plymouth Avenue, so we're balancing people walking in and out of the street with cars that are trying to get through. So there's other residents who are very upset because they can't get through Plymouth Avenue. So it really is a balance to try to help facilitate everyone's need while ensuring public safety.
That's my next question in terms of what's that tipping point, because for those of us that have been out there, you guys have seen it, that road, people are going back and forth, they're conversating out there, they're meeting people out there. At what point do you physically remove people from the area?
I think we have to continue to have those discussions. If things escalate, then our response too has to escalate. We had to clear out the vestibule because there again, it became not only a public safety issue, a public access issue. So we continue to respond in an appropriate way given the circumstances.
Chief, it was pretty apparent that the stanchions were placed so that you can keep the front lobby, the front sidewalk area open. Also noticed that you were not making any attempts to remove any of the tents or the encampment
Nope.
itself. Any plans to change that?
No, not at this time. The original plan is still the same, that we just wanted to clear that vestibule, and the goal is to, there again, continue to allow people to have their frustrations heard and to use their freedom of speech, and we would facilitate that. But public safety is the number one priority.
Earlier today, or elaborate the part about, you said a suspect was arrested who had been involved in punching an officer, is that what you said?
Well, the incident on 94 the other night with the state trooper, there was a trooper that had been punched in the face, and that person was by our front door when we went to go open it up to talk to the young ladies.
Earlier today, you released the names of the officers. Can you tell us the races of the officers you have?
I did not release the names of the officer, as the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension did, and I cannot.
But you know the information. Why can't you say it?
vestibule had people in it since Sunday night. How did you make the decision to remove the people today as opposed to previously?
Well, they continued to escalate with the number of people that were in there. Sometimes there was upwards of 9 to 12 people. They were covering the camera. They were blocking so you couldn't see in or outside of the precinct so people couldn't come in. They were adding tents. It's really, they were getting more and more comfortable. It's my understanding as well. People were smoking marijuana in there, and it was really becoming a hazard. So every day that went by, it became a greater public safety and public access threat.
Is the vestibule really the only concern? Because I know right now they're trying to do a human chain around the building. Are there other entry points that officers probably need to get into the building that have also been a concern?
Yeah, we're going to have to keep a road to get squads in and out. So
I'm sorry, what?
we're going to have to keep one of our gates open to get squads in and out.
We have time for a few more. If you have.
Inspector, you mentioned that there's this threat to escalate their presence down at the 4th Precinct. At what point, where is there a line drawn that you just can't let them interfere with the free flow of public's business?
Well, we meet with the front hallway there. We met that already today. We're hoping that nothing happens. But if you have people out here endangering our public with weapons, rocks, throwing things, wrecking property, trying to injure people, we would have to step in and make arrests.
And if I can clarify, what we're always trying to do is handle the particular incident at the time without trying to have that impact on the rest of the group. And as long as we can do that, then we can help facilitate that freedom of speech. But if it becomes a collective group and that they become a part of the violent acts, then we have to take a greater impact on those groups. So.
Inspector, what are you hearing from your officers right now?
Our officers have been very professional. I will tell you that over the last 3 nights, especially out in the back lot, they've tried to block the gate. We've been polite. We've had to use no force. Officers have taken rocks and bottles continuously, especially at night. We've taken gunfire from just each of the precinct. And the officers have remained calm. They've worked hard. We've got them plenty of rest. They've worked hard. They've had some long days. And today they were professional also. They were calm under the rest. I mean, except for the 2 incidents, the one guy running who actually fell, another guy in custody, no force was used.
Can you elaborate on the gunfire? Who shot what?
We don't know. There was just gunfire. It was very close to the precinct 2 nights ago.
No one in custody?
No one in custody.
Any injuries?
No, sir.
What was hit?
That we don't know. If there's gunfire, we check the area, as reasonably as you can. Sometimes you find some evidence, sometimes you don't.
Any injuries from the bottles?
We've had some cops hit, minor injuries, nobody to the hospital. And then we've had some cars damaged in the lot. And one police car was completely damaged, was outside our perimeter, and windows smashed, tires blown up. They sketched some pretty nasty stuff on the car.
I do want to clarify, however, that arrests that need to be made have been made, and so we did arrest and charge an individual that did damage an unmarked vehicle, so he's been charged. We're looking for the other individual or individuals who damaged the marked squad car. Yes, officers have taken verbal abuse and very challenging situations and rocks and bottles, but if an individual needed to be arrested or we could identify them, that would be something that we would do. So I just want to make sure that people understand that we are still dealing with public safety and making arrests when they are warranted.
If there's been gunfire, do nearby residents need to be concerned?
Well, absolutely. When you hear gunfire and we don't know exactly where it's coming from, I would say that people need to be aware of that. Yeah.
People are obviously very critical of police out there, but I know they're also critical of the mayor. Mayor, would you say a few things?
Sure.
As the chief said, I completely support people's right to assemble and to assemble peaceably, to protest peacefully. We have been doing our best to facilitate for that for people over days. That said, we have to balance that against public safety and the need for public access to our precinct and also public safety. And so I support fully the actions decided by the chief and taken by the Minneapolis Police Department today.
And then if I could have Inspector Friesleven
To finish your
clarify a
question
little
too
bit
on
on
the
that.
safety, during this time though we've brought in extra cops to help secure the precinct to make it safe. we've had plenty of cops on the street and extra cops. There's been no lack of patrol and answering 911 calls during this time. So we've made sure that especially on our night shifts, we've not short on officers at all for the city.
No delay getting to unrelated incidents?
Well, there can be if it's very busy, but not because we didn't have enough cops.
Thank you very much.
I'd actually just like to add
Oh,
one
I'm
more
sorry.
thing. I'll just add one more thing to the question before. It is completely understandable to me that emotions are running high in the community. They're running high for everybody in the city right now. It is understandable to me that people want to gather, that they want to have places where they can express themselves to one another and they can express themselves publicly. I appreciate the fact that people are doing that. I appreciate the fact that so many people are doing that in a way that keeps the peace. It's important for the community to be able to move forward together effectively as in the coming days and weeks and months. And I appreciate people's patience. We have called for an independent federal investigation. It's going to take time for that to happen. And appreciate that as we wait, people's emotions are high. But I thank the folks who've been peaceably gathering and peaceably expressing themselves.